Today on Sports Central, we go over our next team prediction of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Northwestern Wildcats, a team that was 7-2 overall in the 2020 season. And this team made it to the Big Ten championship game last season as well. Second time in the past 3 seasons that we've seen Northwestern in the Big Ten title games. So obviously a great season in 2020 for this team, but how will they be in 2021 is what we'll be going over here today. We're going to go ahead and get started with Northwestern's final prediction. We'll be looking at your season trends from last season to get things started here today. Once again, this team was 7-2 overall. Great season for this team. I mean, it was pretty incredible for this team to go from having a great season in 2019, or in 2018, they had a great season, made it to the Big Ten title game. And of course, in 2019, they had a huge down year for sure. They were 3-9 overall. But then in 2020, completely reversed that and went right back up to being in the title game, and also had a huge bowl win over Auburn. So this team played very well last season. Beat Maryland 43-3, beat Iowa 21-20, beat Wisconsin as well. That was a huge win, 17-7. That was pretty much the Big Ten West championship game on November 21st. And then, of course, they beat Auburn as well, 35-19 to finish out the season. So once again, great season overall for Northwestern across the board. I mean, for this team, once again, to go from being one of the worst teams in the Big Ten in 2019 to one of the best in 2020 was pretty incredible. So it'll be very interesting to see how this team does in the next season. I mean, if you look at Northwestern, this is a team that is extremely inconsistent around the seasons. I mean, there's one year that Northwestern is absolutely outstanding, and the next season they can go right down to a 2-4 win season. So, but anyway, looking at your returning production for next season, this team is having a lot of changes. Peyton Ramsey, of course, he transferred in from Indiana for the 2020 season, and he played very well for Northwestern. Of course, if you look at him last season, he played pretty well. Put up once again 1,700 yards, 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a 61% completion rate. So not a bad season for Peyton Ramsey. I mean, he played pretty well for this team last year. Definitely was a important asset for this team. Ryan Helinski, however, he is transferring in from South Carolina. So Peyton Ramsey, of course, is now not going to be with the team next season. But, of course, you got Ryan Helinski on the flip side coming in. So Ryan Helinski, the thing about him, I'm not as confident in him as I was in Peyton Ramsey when he transferred in. I think Peyton Ramsey is overall the better quarterback. Ryan Helinski is not quite as good as Peyton Ramsey, but who knows? He is a very experienced quarterback, Ryan Helinski is, and I think we could see potentially a good season out of him. We'll have to see what happens there, but he's going to have a huge influence on how this team does next season. Your running backs, Bowser and Anderson. Of course, you got Isaiah Bowser and then Drake Anderson. Both of them are transferring away. So this team, that is kind of interesting in my opinion. I mean, if you look at the amount of transfers that this team has, that does concern me a bit, especially losing 2 running backs there and a receiver, Kyrick McGowan. He's transferring to Georgia Tech. So you do lose a few players next season for sure in the skill players position, and a significant amount to be precise there. But this team does have Evan Hull. He was your 3rd running back last season. Played pretty well for this team, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns as well. He is definitely going to have a workload next season, it looks to be right now. You don't really have much else in that running back core as of now. Last season, you had a great rushing core there. You had several running backs. I mean, this team was looking very good in that position last season, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But Ramad Bowman, your top receiver there, you are losing him, so that's definitely something to watch out for. John Rain, your tight end, is not going to be back as well. So skill players position does not look very good for this team next season. I mean, we got Ryan Helinski coming in, but otherwise this team just does not look very good, and that's kind of a concern for me. And of course, I mean, if you look at any team in the returning production, if they're losing a lot of players, and if the team is looking pretty inexperienced going into the next season, there's a pretty good chance that the team will not be very good. And for Northwestern, that's exactly what I'm seeing here. You lose 1 on the offensive line, so offensive line looks pretty good. You lose 1 on the defensive line, and then 2 linebackers, 2 in the secondary as well. So you lose 5 starters on the defensive side, so defensively you do lose quite a bit as well. So this Northwestern team overall, once again, returning production-wise, just does not look very good next season. They're looking pretty young for sure going into next year, so that's definitely something to watch out for. But thing is for Northwestern is I think this team, I mean, you had a great 2020 season, and definitely keep a close hold on that 2020 season, because especially if you're a Northwestern fan, because 2021 I do not see being anywhere near as good as 2020 was. So a chance of a bowl season in 2021, that's kind of the question here for Northwestern. I think it's not really the question of whether or not this team will win the division, because I think the chances of this team winning the division are extremely low. I'm just putting it to you guys pretty straight here and pretty bluntly, because this team just does not have a very good chance of winning the Big Ten West next season. And I like Wisconsin and Iowa and Minnesota quite a bit more than Northwestern next season for many reasons, which I won't describe in this video. But chance of a bowl season in 2021, I think this team will be in contention for one. I don't like their odds to easily make one. I think Northwestern is going to be kind of right around that 4 to 7 win range. So obviously Northwestern is going to be tough for them, and especially with as tough of a schedule as they do have. Let's look at their schedule now. Of course, you got Michigan State to start off the season, which of course that's a home game, so that is a good way to start off the season. But of course it's a conference game too, so that's a very important game already in the first game of the season. Then you got Indiana State. That should be an easier game there. Then you got a road trip to Duke, ACC matchup. And then you got Ohio coming to town on September 25th. You travel to Nebraska to start your October. You got Rutgers as well after your bye. Michigan, then Minnesota as well. Then you got Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue, and Illinois to finish out the season. So your crossover games into the Big Ten East include, of course, Michigan State, Rutgers, and Michigan. So really, I do take that back a little bit. This team does not have a brutal schedule. Like, their schedule is definitely difficult, but it's not brutal. I mean, if you look at any team, it's not quite the toughest one in the Big Ten, but it could be a challenge, though. I mean, you do have a road trip to Duke. You got Michigan State at home to start off the season as well, so you do got to take that into account when you're looking at this team's schedule. And, of course, you got a road trip to Wisconsin. You got to go to Michigan as well. Both of those teams should be pretty good next season. But looking at September here, Michigan State, I think this is going to be a very close matchup. It's going to go back and forth quite a bit, but I'm going to give Michigan State the win. It's going to be, once again, extremely close, but I think Michigan State does pull it out in the end in a close one. I mean, just with all the changes with Northwestern, I mean, this team is going to be kind of rusty to start up next season. And I think that's why Michigan State does get the win there. Indiana State, easy win. Duke on the road. I'm going to say it's a close one, and you do get the win. So you do have a pretty big win there against Duke. And, of course, Duke was not a very good team last season either, but either way, that's a great road win there in Duke. Then you got Ohio coming to town on the 25th. Ohio, of course, just had their head coach retire, Frank Solich, and Ohio in general is definitely a team that I'm not expecting much out of for next season, so that'll be an easy win as well. So 3-1 is your record through the month of September. Not a bad situation, but then in October, that's when things get kind of tough. Again, Nebraska on the road. I like Nebraska a decent amount next season. I think Nebraska does get the win there. Rutgers could be a good team as well. Don't sleep on them. It's going to be a close one, but Northwestern gets the win there. So you got a 4-2 start there in your first 6 games, which is not a terrible situation. But Michigan and Minnesota, both tough games. I think both of those teams get the win over Northwestern. So 4-4 is your record heading into November. You need 2 wins in your last 4 games to get to a bowl game, which I definitely think is possible for this Northwestern team with Purdue and Illinois at the end of the schedule. I mean, it's reasonable for this team to definitely get there, but I think this team just kind of falls apart at the end of next season, and I think you lose to Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue, and Illinois, unfortunately. And I know a lot of you Northwestern fans are not going to take this very well. You guys are probably going to start screaming at me in the comment section below, which rightfully so. If you guys want to, go ahead. But I think this team, just with the returning production once again, just does not look good for this team. It's going to be a pretty inexperienced team next season as well. And once again, it's going to definitely depend on how Ryan Helinski does. If he plays well at the quarterback position, this team, who knows, they could definitely make it to a bowl game. But I just think right now, it's just going to be a tough go at it next season. And even though, I mean, you've had 2 great seasons in the past 3 years, so you've got nothing to really complain about going into next season. I mean, you made it to a Big Ten championship game in 2018, and you also did it in 2020. I just think 2021 is kind of a tough year for you. 4-8 is the record overall. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Northwestern. I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.